Can you believe it? 50 fucking episodes, issues, whatever you want to call it. Welcome back to TLDR. I'm your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe. With me, as always, is my hunk in crime. And Nick, we are really putting the fucking Woodward and Bernstein into Woodward and Bernstein.
Yeah, I mean,
How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I mean, and just quickly, 50 episodes, 50 mainline episodes. Of course, we've done specials. We've done this. We have the solicits now as part of our monthly routine, and of course, we've had a bunch of different guests on the show, and that's not going to stop anytime soon. It's been a fun ride, Joe, and I'm really excited for what we have planned today. But before people got to listen to the Omnibus, I'm sure that they've listened to the John Boy interview that we just had recently. But there's even more. There's more beyond that too. We talk about Woodward and Bernstein. I don't know where you want to start.
Well, let's start with John Boy, because that was a fascinating fireside chat that we had, because it was, I know that the last one we had Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans, the writer and artist and co-creators of Die. So it's the first time we've had, an artist on, but this was the first time where we just had an artist on. And it's not like, John Boy was promoting a certain book that he was doing the interiors for. He's mostly done covers, but it was just a very fascinating interview that we had, because we learned about his process, where his creativity comes from, and we got a little inside baseball on sort of how how the art world works. And he's a great guy. He was a great guy to talk to, and I enjoyed that one very much.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and we got to meet him at Boston Fan Expo, and we both got a little bit of art from him. And just from when we met him right then and there, before we even broached the subject of having him on, you could just tell he was a really nice guy. And honestly, Joe, I wasn't kidding when we talked to him. Like, he's about as humble as it gets. Like, to the point where it's like a little self-deprecating at times. It's like, dude, like, your shit's really good. And I'm glad that he's like that. I hope he can enjoy his work from time to time. But like, I'm glad that he, is never fully satisfied. And I think if you're going to be really good at anything in life, you're never fully satisfied with your work. And he's we've shared a bunch of his artwork and everything. Of course, you can go follow him on John Boy 007 on Twitter, Instagram, excuse me. But his shit's great. I mean, it all speaks for itself. I mean, I bought the Boba Fett cover that he had drawn for War of the Bounty Hunters, and then you bought Nightwing. I forget which Nightwing cover that was.
Yeah, I've got for those watching, it's the one right behind me, but I can't remember for what particular book it was for.
I can't either. It was before. I think it was before. I believe it was well before Tom Taylor's run.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but either way, that was a lot of fun. And then Joe always talks about how we're the Woodward and Bernstein of the DSG, and Woodward and Bernstein, as much as we're doing interviews, are more known for digging up the news and everything. And we do get some stuff in those interviews from time to time, newsy. But the other day, we found out that a certain friend of the show, through our, sleuthing and, talking to people behind closed doors, or however you want to put it, that Rodney Barnes is going to be writing the Mandalorian comic book series that we heard about. I feel like this was pre-pandemic. We heard about this show. Maybe it was middle of last year.
Yeah, I was racking my brain trying to figure out when we sort of heard this news, and then it got pushed to the wayside in my brain with all the other stuff between then and now. So I kind of forgot about it. And then when he mentioned it, when we talked to him, we were both blown away. And then he sort of kind of told us what it was going to be about. So he's doing an adaptation, of the Mandalorian show for comic book in comic book form. So he was funny because he kept saying, the more I keep talking, the more I keep, spilling the beans. Like, well, let's get him talking for another 50 minutes and see what else he gives us.
I'll tell you what, if you guys like Philadelphia, we talked to him about Nita Hawes' Nightmare blog, which is dropping on the 20th of October, which you mentioned in our solicit. Joe and I have gotten a chance to read that already. You're going to hear from Rodney later in the month, him talking about that with us, and it kicks ass. I honestly, look, recency bias, and the series only just started, but I kind of already like it more than Philadelphia, and I really like Philadelphia. But there's other stuff that he has coming, and I shit you not, he told us about a title that he has planned, and I was like, I may like that more than fucking Nita Hawes, and I thought Nita Hawes kicked ass.
Yeah, he's a busy man for sure, and I love talking with Rodney because he's so thoughtful, and he's so when he talks about his books, he really goes into where he comes up with the ideas and the purpose behind everything. And Man, he's got something going on because there's some fucked up shit.
Yeah, it really is.
Man.
Yeah, we can only talk to him about Nita Hawes is issue 1 because all the stuff's kind of embargoed and everything like that. But Joe and I have gotten to take a look at a couple issues beyond the first issue of Nita Hawes. And tell you what, I mean, look, if you like Philadelphia, we don't need to sell you on it. It's really easy. But if you haven't been reading Philadelphia, A, what the fuck are you doing? And B, get on Nita Hawes. Like, and even then, like, you'll be fine if you haven't read Philadelphia. You can still get on Nita Hawes. But I recommend reading both because why not?
Oh, 100%.
But he, like you said, he really does have something cooking. Like when you think about this, because obviously Rodney's doing some shows that we already knew about, and they talked to us about a little bit more. And there's a lot. He's got a lot going on. And I'll tell you what, though, when it comes time to make Philadelphia a show, like that shit's going to be like everybody is going to be locked in on this. It's got so much potential. But so that's coming a little bit later on. John Boy was awesome. Had so much fun talking to him, and just. Like you said, Joe, we haven't had the chance to talk to many artists on our show, and hopefully that changes moving forward because, as much as we like what the writers are bringing to the table, we also like how the artists, how they're telling the story too, because if they're not part of this, you and I aren't reading it because we don't usually read prose quite as much.
Yeah, and the artist really can make or break a book, right? How many times we said like, "Oh, the story was good, but the art just took me out of it. I couldn't continue on." Or sometimes, as we've noticed with one of the books that we're going to talk about in just a moment, but also you notice this a lot with Nice House on the Lake, is that a lot of times the art, is the story in itself, right? With the minimal words, let the art, and that can really elevate. Right, what's going on, and make it's going to make a horror book that much more creepier, or it can make a moment that much more dramatic or whatever. So it was a really fun perspective to get.
Yeah, and we'll be checking in with him down the line for sure because we know he's got some stuff cooking and can't wait to see what he comes up with. And he did mention, John Boy did mention too that he's reading Nice House on the Lake as well, and I really had to keep it within myself and not say how you feel about that pause that you guys are about to get. There's a 3-month pause or something like that or more after issue 6. So I wanted to rub it in because I have to wait this whole freaking time so you can talk about it on the damn show. But anyways, without further ado, let's get to catching up, Joe. Now you haven't caught up on anything because you're getting busy getting ready for today's show, right?
Yeah. Had a busy weekend getting ready for today's show because for anyone that has, that's listened to us and watched us in the past, it's trade issue time. So typically what we do is we talk about a new book and then we revisit a book that, either Nick or myself, in this case, Nick will have read. But today we're going to be doing 3 each, just sort of revisiting. So I had a lot of reading to do.
Yes.
And so thankfully it was a light week for what's new this week.
Yeah. So it was for catching up for me, I read Inferno issue 1, and this is kind of like where we're starting to see the collapse of Krakoa. I'll tell you what, man, it's pretty good.
Is it
pretty good? I think it would make a big difference if we'd read all of the X-Men stuff, but of course it just got too overwhelming for us because we want to read all the indie stuff too. And DC kind of lends itself more so to somebody who wants to, bounce around wherever they want. And then I also read Winter Guard 2. I want more Yelena Belova, and this has been solid. I mean, it's been like a an 8 or 7.5, nothing crazy, but it's been good. So I'm going to continue forward with this one. But Inferno, I have some pretty high expectations for coming out of the first issue, but not as high expectations as I do for the first book we're going to talk about for what's new this week, Joseph. And that book is We Have Demons, issue 1, which is a Comixology original, of course, by none other than Scott Snyder.
I fucking hate you.
Greg Capullo.
I hate you.
So now Joe, of course, hates me going into it because Greg Capullo is drawing this. All these books are Scott Snyder books that he has planned for Comixology and everything. But this one, along with Clear and with what's the Ghoul one called?
I don't have that.
The third, I believe it's the third one he has planned for this month.
Yeah.
Those 3 books, we are actually going to be talking about all of those soon with our pal Scott Snyder, because what we have planned, we've been working on this for a while. Scott actually kind of teased the idea to us when we last had him on about doing something when he finally announces all these books and when he does his rollout. So instead of having a normal mainline issue or anything next week, we're going to have a special only with Scott Snyder. And maybe we'll have another guest on. That's still kind of up in the air. So we're not going to promise anything that we're not certain on. But this we know, next Tuesday, so that is October 12th, Scott Snyder is going to be joining us. The plan right now is for 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be streaming that live. That is not going to be an audio only thing. We will drop that on Wednesday. That will be the only thing we do that week for you guys. But we're going to be talking about We Have Demons. We're going to be talking about all of his other books too, but especially his 3 October books in detail. So Joe has actually gotten the chance to read We Have Demons because he needs to be able to talk about that on the show. Joe, what were your thoughts on it?
I hate you for rigging the fucking coin flip.
I didn't do shit. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you fucking rigged that shit. It was so obvious you rigged it. Oh, I'm not gonna do the flip, and then it conveniently lands. Yeah.
I said it. By the way, the other October book from Scott is Night of the Ghoul.
Night of the Ghoul. Yes, that's what it is. So
Francavilla.
Man, I mean, what would you expect? It's Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. You know it's gonna fucking kick ass. And this book, when I talk about writers and our pantheon of writers, and I've sort of gotten to where I've got my favorite writers sort of in 2 camps. There's the storytellers, and then there's the character guys. And I don't think there's any. I mean, Scott Snyder is the best storyteller out of all of them, right? And that's what you get with this issue. The story that he tells, from the first panel to the last, it's a fucking roller coaster, because at first you're thinking one thing. And then you're going through the whole thing, and then what you get at the end was so awesome.
Yeah.
And the fact that Snyder just lets Capullo go loose, right, and really get fucking wild, especially towards the end with some of those panels. I mean, this, as much as I loved and love Nocterra, this book is something else.
Yes, this reason this book was so highly coveted for us, and it's not, again, we can't say enough, because Capullo is one of the all-timers when it comes to comic book artists and pencilers. And I'll tell you what, man, that the first page, because you get that like warning thing on the first page, and then you get the first page of like real art, and then it's like, wait, what the fuck is happening right now? And it was like appropriate for the title. And then Scott has to go and establish this new world that we're in, and it's still like normal modern, like Earth, but there's a lot of different things. And that's where he does what he does so well, because he knows exactly how to bounce around and give you what's going on, and then expand things a little more, give you what's going on. And that's kind of we saw that in Ordinary Gods too, where Kyle Higgins is trying to do so much, and he does that well too. And it's just when guys get that right, and writers get that right, it makes such a huge difference, because then it's like, okay, I'm up to speed, I got it, and then you can give me a little bit more, in the coming issues, but eventually we're going to be all set. And Snyder does it as well, if not better than everybody. And then on top of that, like what we're getting into now is just so kick-ass. Yeah. And I love this character Lamb already, and some of the other characters that we meet in the course of the story too. So it's everything you expected, everything you could have wanted.
And the mythos he creates, he does it again. Snyder he's a master storyteller. And so the mythos that he creates is written and done in such a way where it's not dense. It's not like, heavy reading you've got to do, to get, it's like, no, it's perfect. It's perfectly explained. It's perfectly drawn. It's paced perfectly. And it fits. I think these comiXology books may be wrong, a little bit longer than a typical book.
Yeah, I think and I think it was 38 pages in the end.
Yeah. So a little bit, but I noticed it, but it didn't feel like it was not.
No.
You
could have kept going. You could have kept going for me if you wanted to. He could have done 10 more pages of that, and I would have been happy.
This could have been 6 issues, and I would have read it in one sitting.
Yeah, it was so good. Yeah, easy read, and the narration that he does at the beginning was interesting too. I'd like to see a little more of that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say no. I would love to see narration done like that. Period. Because it gives you a chance to, choose, like, okay, I'm going to read the narration first, and then you can read the panels of what the characters are discussing. And I felt like that was a good flow. Like oftentimes with narration, the narration box is over here, but all the other boxes are so like, okay, what do and you kind of jump around a bit. Not that it's difficult, but like I don't know. There was something about that was very aesthetically pleasing.
It was a nice change of pace and a very welcome one. And if he just, and I hope he keeps doing that with this series, and that would be something I'd love to see mixed in more going forward from him. And if others feel the need to try that, by all means, go for it. Why not?
Did Lamb give you some Val feel? So just the way she was sort of drawn and in the way she looked a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, well, not like, I mean, Tony Daniel, of course, and Capullo they're different, but
but I just mean like I feel like when
a similar age, similar age.
When Snyder was sort of describing this character, like just the kind of like the look to her feels like he was describing Val, and then had Capullo sort of do his spin. That's just how I felt. I was like, oh, she feels very familiar to me.
That's fair. That's fair. I also think that with both of those characters that we're seeing, female characters, young female characters that aren't being hypersexualized either, which of course we know happens all the time in comics. And anytime we're not, they're not going to do that, that's also a welcome decision too.
Yeah.
So that may be part of why you're thinking that too. I could easily see that being the case. But other than that, I don't know how much. I mean, maybe a little bit. I guess maybe a little bit. I'll give you that. There's definitely a thread there.
Just the face, just the kind of the face. Just I don't know. It was just me because I was like, this character.
Maybe it's the eyes. They're same soul because their soul is Scott Snyder in the end.
That's right.
But let's move on to Marvel. Of course, we have Deadpool, Black, White, and Blood issue 3. Which we're both reading. Symbiote, Spider-Man, Crossroads, issue 4. And then the big one that we're both reading for this week is Dark Ages 2 from Marvel. And Joe, this was like the first issue was awesome. Everything I hope to be. This is Tom Taylor, of course. This thing is going to be kick-ass. And with that first issue, knocked my socks off. Okay, where are we going to go with the second one? Like we kind of have an idea. And it wasn't like even then I kind of forgot in between issues where I thought the direction was going to be. Then we get the second issue, and it was awesome. Love this series. Must-read series for Marvel fans.
Okay, I haven't had a chance to read this one yet because I was scrambling last minute to read a couple of other things that I didn't get a chance to read yet, and so it's right on the top of my pile right here. I got the for those watching, I got the Wolverine cover.
Right, oh, nice
cover there. So that was pretty badass. So I can't wait to dive into.
So this is the one that I have. And I'll tell you, and I think this is the main cover. I'm not certain. I haven't looked into it.
Yeah, it is.
But I mean, you can see Spider-Man's design. You can see May's design. I'll tell you what, this is just alone for the new illustrations of the characters. For that alone, it's totally worth picking up. And just so we can credit the artist, because Lord knows we always forget. This is Ivan Coelho, and the color artist is Brian Reber for this series. So. Awesome job.
Fantastic, yeah.
The redesigns we see, and there's some other characters we didn't see in the first issue that you see in this one, and it's just like this shit rips. It is going to be awesome. So I can't recommend it enough. Go find that first issue if you haven't gotten already, and then read the second one that comes out this week. For DC, we have quite a few books that you're reading. What's on your pull list for this week from DC?
So a couple books I haven't had a chance to read yet. Crushed Lobo #5. I think we're both reading that one. The Joker Presents Puzzle Box. I've got the first 2 issues. For some reason, like the first 2 issues weren't available for us.
I don't know what that's about.
But this one is, right? So
it was.
It's in there. So I'm gonna catch up on these. So hopefully next week's catching up. Or
that's Rosenberg, right?
I believe so. Yep. I'll have those. But Nice House on the Lake #5. Nick, I will not be able to take a 6-month layoff of this fucking book because this fucking issue he blows the goddamn doors open on the 5th issue. There's one more left, and there's a 6-month fucking break. I won't be able to fucking take it.
I don't. That's. I wish I could pick on you, or even like try and console you. I just can't.
I'm so fucking mad.
I'm not sorry either.
It's been like my favorite book, one of my favorite books for the fucking year. And just as it's about to end, it really takes off. I mean, like rocket ship to the fucking moon takes off. And now I'm like, you goddamn, it's like, Jessica Rabbit walks into the room. You're fucking, Roger Rabbit. She's about to undress, and then, never mind. Zips up and takes off, and you're just fucking sitting there going, what the fuck am I supposed to do now?
Man, I'm curious when we get to the end of the year, because we're going to do our second annual, and we'll have our book rankings and everything. I know this will be on your list, but I'm curious if right now, do you feel like it's the top of your list, absolute number one?
I don't know if it's absolute number one because there's been some really good books that have come out this year.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like this year, like it's been a lot better than last year, and last year was really good, right?
That's fair.
And this is one of them. This is easily top three. I think this book has just been so good, and you want to talk about writer and artist, like the tag team of Tynan and Alvaro
I can't help
Bueno.
you on this one.
Yeah. It's escaped me at the moment, but anyways, the art and it's been fantastic, and the story has been like that's what Tynan does. Like if Snyder is a master storyteller, Tynan is a master at suspense, and he's been at his absolute best with this book. So, I mean, I was just so like I put it down and I go, fuck, man, fuck.
Alvaro Martinez Bueno.
There it is, Alvaro
There
Martinez Bueno. Like he's absolutely tremendous. And then Batman 114 I haven't read yet, but I've been keeping up on that. I mean, Tynan's run I think is ending in 3 more issues with that as well. So,
And it's Williamson's time to shine.
yeah, which we're gonna have to see if we can get him on at some point too.
I know you're excited about him too after everything he's done with Robin, of course, and I know Flash readers loved him as well. I did read Crush Lobo issue 5 this week. That was one of the books I caught up on because I fell behind on issue 4. So I'm all caught up on Crush Lobo, and I thought it was solid. I think this has been I think the start of the series was a little bit too slow. But these last 2 issues have been really good. This one just as good as the previous one. So it'd be nice if I think. If you had taken maybe one of those previous issues out, it would have been a little bit better, but I can't say more than it's solid right now. Visually, it's been awesome, but from a story perspective, there were times where it felt like a little bit too slow for me. Yeah. Then also The Conjuring, The Lover, issue 5, of course, my favorite book. It has now come to an end officially. Another book that I had to catch up on. I fell behind on issue 4 of this as well. And this was a fine series, I would say. I wouldn't go and say like it's a must read for horror fans. If you like The Conjuring, it's something that you may want to pick up the trade later on because it's just a fun little read. It goes along well. It goes along perfectly with the third Conjuring movie. I think it was The Devil Made Me Do It. So it fits perfectly with that. Is exactly what it's written for to further that story. But there were a couple of backup stories that I liked. I think there were 2 that were really, really good. One of them was, of course, Scott Snyder's in that first book. I don't know if it was The Highwayman or something to that effect, but that one was the best one. And then there was another one that really kicked ass too. I think it was about a husband and wife kind of deal. But anyways, so then and then Arkham City, The Order of the World. This was the first issue of this came out. And I thought this one was another one that was good. Definitely interested in reading the second issue. A little bit weird. We're dealing with we're seeing a lot of different characters that have escaped from Arkham Asylum. We have I forget the doctor's name, who's like the only psychiatrist that's still alive from Arkham. And she's kind of helping the police try and wrangle them all up. But it seems like there's something else at play. And it doesn't seem like Batman's really involved much at all right now. So I think that this in the psychiatrist too might be a little bit weird. So I think this is a sort of series that's worth looking into for you. And I'm definitely going to give the second issue a shot.
Rom V had high praise for this book yesterday. Yeah.
Okay. And this is was it Dan Waters? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then for Image, we have The Me You Love in the Dark, which you're reading. How is that one?
It's awesome. I mean, it's Scotty Young, Jorge Corona, and
that's right. I keep forgetting this is Scotty Young.
And man, like the first 2 books, it's been really great storytelling. It hasn't been a lot of action. It's definitely had a really good, creepy vibe to it. And then this issue just really takes the story and cranks it up a notch, and definitely gets a little weird. And the suspense and everything that's building towards, like you still don't know where it's going, but you're very intrigued. Jorge Corona's art is I've always loved his art, and Scotty Young's, he was great on Middle West, and he's just as good in this one. So if you haven't been reading this, find the first 2 copies, get this one. I think you'll enjoy it.
And if you haven't read Middle West too, make sure you go back to listen to an earlier issue on TLDR. That was, I think, within the first 10 issues of TLDR. Yeah. I've been the first 4, if I'm not mistaken, before we decided to switch over to do audio in addition to video. Then we also had the first issue of A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance from Rick Remender. And we're getting close to the show, and I had read a bunch of different stuff prior to the show. Like, I went and go and pick up my comics and everything, and come back and I'm like, oh, that's right, we have this review copy. And we have like 10 minutes left before you and I are doing our pre-show. I'm like, I got to read this thing. I don't know how I'm going to do it in 10 minutes. And then I did it in 5. Yeah. It was like, wait a minute, what? But it was
I
good.
bet Lauren says the same thing.
Oh wow, okay, it's like that. Well, anyways, I don't have a comeback for that. You got me on that one. Plus one for Joe today. But this does not have a lot of dialogue. I mean, it's probably, I would say, under 100 words are used in this story. Am I right?
Yeah, very minimal. And this is what I was talking about earlier when I said, like, sometimes, the art really drives the story, right? And in this case, it really was. It was a lot of, silent
solely
panels, right?
Yeah. Yep.
If you will. But I think what it did really well was, while we still have a lot of questions, you don't know really what the hell is going on. I want issue 2
Yes.
bad because I want to know
Yes.
what the hell is going on.
Yes. I will say, like, having that, where he's kind of establishing this character early on in the story, whose name we don't know.
Yeah.
Like the way sometimes with that you can kind of get bogged down, you can slow down, but by not having the dialogue, it made it so easy. And then by the end of it, you're just like slapped in the face with, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And that now it's like, yeah, of course. I'm like, without questioning on number 2. And I don't even need to see number 2 to know I'm going to give 3 a shot. Like, unless 2 is like an absolute dumpster fire. But
right.
Even if it's just fine, I'm going to give 3 a chance because I love the precedent that he sent with this first issue.
Yeah. It was an interesting approach for sure.
For Boom, of course, we have Buffy the Vampire Slayer 30, Magic the Gathering 7, which is a series that I am a slight bit behind on, but we'll catch up on. And then Mighty Morphin 12, which I am completely caught up on. I'm not falling behind on that again. Of course, talked about that on the show after the first arc, in addition to Power Rangers, which should be coming out the next week of October. And this has been an awesome series. I really enjoy. If you like the Power Rangers, I think Power Rangers is worth reading, but if you grew up on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers like me, you have to be reading Mighty Morphin, especially right now. Some serious shit is like, we just learned some crazy shit the last couple issues, and now some serious shit is about to happen it looks like this next arc, because they've been doing 4 issues at a time over at Boom. So it's going to be bananas. I don't know how long it's going to last, but the Omega Rangers are going to be involved. That they're the ones in focus in the Power Ranger series, and then you got Mighty Morphin, who's most of the characters that you were familiar with if you watched that show. So very excited to see what this is, what happens with this series next. Speaking of being excited about shit, though, Lucky Devil 3 from Dark Horse is one of the absolute, there's a lot of good books right now. And you talk about surprise of the year, as much as it's Cullen, this one wasn't on my radar. This shit is nuts. It just hasn't stopped through the first 3 issues.
Yeah. And this issue was the most wild of them all, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And I thought the first issue was wild.
Yeah, man.
But this was awesome. I love it, and I love the character. Is it Zed or Zeb? I think
it's Zed.
Yeah, Zed. He's just a great little bit of comic relief, if you will, to the whole thing. So this book's been fantastic.
And then you have Last Flight Out 2, which you're reading also.
Yep, I haven't read this issue yet, but I enjoyed the first issue very much.
Now, there is another Cullen Bunn book we're going to get to in a second, but before we do that, I got to mention Aftershock. Got to make good on this because I said I was going to read this shit. So first, there's 7 Swords issue 4, and there's Almost American issue 2. But this week was the week that we get Chicken Devil issue 1. Now, shame on us, Joe, because, of course, we always mention who the writer is, right? Every time we're talking about these books, we mention who the writer is beforehand. But we do our solicits, I mean. Yeah. But sometimes we forget to mention the artist on this. And, Brian Buccellato is the writer on this. The artist on this, I don't know if you checked this, it's somebody that I just talked about recently who did a book with Sean Lewis. Your favorite, Hayden Sherman, excuse me.
Oh, no shit.
Yep. And once you open it, and of course he did Thumbs with he did Thumbs as well, and he did The Few, which I talked about. Joe talked about Thumbs, which I did, which I loved that too. But when you start looking at this art, you totally can see how it's Hayden Sherman's work, and it's very weird for sure, and it's intense. And I think it's something that people will be able to relate to initially, in the first few pages. So this one's going to be a good one. I mean, when I picked it up too, my guy at Time Capsule over in Seaconk was like, this is he was going to recommend another book that I ended up picking up that we'll get to in a second. But he said this is even better than that book, which I don't know if it might be. It's weird and it's fun. So I would not tell you to hold off on this one, but I will talk about it on the show. I think if you do, we'll see after the next issue. But yeah, it was. I didn't know what to expect with Chicken Devil fully, but it's It's fucking weird, man.
I had an opportunity to pick it up, and I said, there was one issue at Newbury Comics, and I said, you know what? I'm going to let Nick have this one. And I put it back, and I didn't pick it up. If I had known it was Sherman, I probably would have grabbed it, though. Like, I just, you know what I mean? Like, but so it's all yours, big guy.
All right, well, maybe we'll have to get Hayden on at some point down the line, because if he's got this and we end up liking this a lot, and then he's done a bunch of stuff with Sean, he's and he's I mean, I don't know if he's from here originally, but he went to RISD, I think. Yeah. So, but anyways, then we have Vault, again, talking about Cullen Bunn. This is the other big book. I mean, this is Cullen. I mean, for Scott Snyder, of course, is getting the most headlines this week, but I think Cullen may have the best week of the two. I don't know. It's really close, though, because we also get from Vault The Last Book You'll Ever Read 3, which was fucking, man, this is another really, this issue was a very, very fast read, breakneck pace, and now it's like, oh boy, shit's really getting ratcheted up right now.
I'm so mad because, I've been able to go to Newbury Comics and get my naughty cover for this book, and they didn't have it. So then I had to buy it digitally. So I'm bummed out about that because I didn't get my, my naughty book, but I'm excited to read this one.
There's a lot of naughtiness in this one, and there's a lot of like, what is going to happen next with this character, that character? Holy shit, what the fuck's happening? So it's a great mix of chaos, which is what this book is all about. It's just sheer chaos. So I think right now I'm leaning towards Lucky Devil a little bit more than The Last Book You'll Ever Read. But The Last Book You'll Ever Read is just like I'm picking, you know what I mean? Like between my two favorite, between my two children that I don't have. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just, they're that good. Then, of course, there's Dynamite, right? Red Sonja 2, which you're reading that because that's written by Mirka Andolfo right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I finished the second issue before we got on today. Absolutely love it. Must read it. Go read it. It's fantastic. Not you, the people, because I'm going to talk about it on the show.
Okay. And then what came out from AWA this week, Joe?
So from AWA, the highly anticipated Out #1. For those watching, I got the book right there. I was able to snag a variant cover. Which,
I think I got the main cover. I like that one.
AWA only really does variant covers for their first issues.
Yeah, they did a shit ton for this one. I mean, we tweeted that out from our Instagram account. They did a lot.
Yeah, so this book was good, and it's spooky. I mean, it's what are we calling it, Darktober, or are we gonna fall in? Do we fall in the Dorktober umbrella? But man, it was. I don't want to say it was a little slow at first, but like you just trying to kind of figure out what's going on, and then you get to the end, and then boom, like that's where the book takes off. Like that's like. What solidified this for me is like, okay, go grab issue 2 was what happened in those last few pages. Not that what was, leading.
It's a concept that we like. That's the big thing. Yes, it's a concept that you like. So you take a little bit of time with it. We also trust what they're doing over there because, of course, 100%. We've had Axel on, and of course, we've seen a ton of quality stuff from them. They're not churning out like 5 books every week. Even it's just one a week. So sometimes 2. So like they're picky about their shit. So I really So I liked it. You're right. It was a little bit slow at first, but the ending is like, oh shit. Yeah. And this is a concept that's really, obviously we're talking about World War II stuff, and then you're bringing in vampires and everything. It's automatically going to be interesting.
Yep. We're in, baby. We're in.
Now, before we get to, I know we don't always pull up the listener comments on the chat, but before we get into the omnibus portion of this episode, I did want to point something out that was brought to my attention just now. I didn't realize this. I'm rocking my Red Hood sweatshirt right now, and you have your Nightwing background. So we're being asked by Southpaw 519 who
Hi,
we
Frank.
got in this fight. Oh, Frank, there you go. Who we got in this? Who taken in this fight? I mean, I'm always taking Red Hood because he's not afraid to pull the trigger usually.
Yeah, and I love this picture of Nightwing, but I'd probably take Red Hood too. To be honest with you, it's not much of a debate here because. Yeah, you take the guy who's willing to pull the trigger versus the guy who's not, generally 9 times out of 10.
But when we play Gotham Knights, you're going to have to use Nightwing, and I'm going to be using Red Hood all the time.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, and I'm never going to be able to play with Keith because we're going to get into fights. if that happens.
He doesn't want to get into a coin flipping contest with you fucking
Yeah. Hey, guess what? I told Lauren I was going to put this in a frame, but I haven't yet. It's still right next to my
son
shit.
Of a bitch.
It is the same one. You can tell because this thing's fucking dirty as shit. I don't know why, but anyways, it is time, Joe, for us to get the main portion of the show, this week's show, TLDR 50, the Omnibus edition. You and I had to figure out exactly what we wanted to call this because we're always trying to find new ways to talk about or to label the different episodes that we do on this show. Of course, we have the specials, we had the events. We do our solicits. We have the Fireside Chat. So a bunch of different titles for this. We thought compendium, but then it's like, no. It's supposed to be an omnibus. Compendium is for issue 100. So we'll worry about that later on down the line. But this is typically, when we get to, our number of 10, I forget like how to put it, but whatever. Anyways, when we get to our 40th, when we get to our 30th, we are reviewing a new book for each other. And then we're also talking about ones that the guys previously talked about before, as you mentioned earlier. Now, for this, what we're going to do instead is we're going to talk about multiple titles that we've recommended to one another. We're doing it to 3 today, although there are quite a few books that could have been up for discussion. For example, if you listen to Kyle Higgins' interview, you know that I've read Radiant Black. Joe talked about Radiant Black on here a while, I think right before that, actually. And that's such an awesome series. Yeah. I'm not going to do that one today because, of course, I've talked about that at nauseum already with Joe. And there are definitely other books that fall into that category. But we'll get into our specifics. Let's start with you first today.
Do you know what book I'm going to do, Nicholas?
So I guessed 3 books, and I cannot remember the first 3 that I guessed with you. I'd have to should we run through the all the ones we've done from the last 10 issues?
No. We can.
Okay. Why don't you do the one that I got right? Because you said I got 1 out of the 3 guesses, the initial 3 guesses that I gave you.
Okay, this works out perfect because this is the first book I wanted to talk about.
Okay. Oh yes, the plot holes. Fuck yeah, dude! That was my favorite book of this year. So awesome.
Yeah, I knew I was going to do this the moment you talked about it on the show. Just
so good.
Because the concept of it is it's just perfect. And then when you talked about the characters, and then it's Sean Murphy. He wrote it and he drew it. So just
one of my favorites, one of my absolute favorites.
So the plot holes is the book that I'll be discussing. And Nick and I will talk about real quick here. Written and drawn by Sean Murphy, letters by Ann World Design, and colors by Matt Hollingsworth and Dave Stewart. And this was an Indiegogo campaign that Sean did. And I just remember when you talked about this book and you talked about the different characters in it and the concept, I was just like, yes, this is like the perfect book for me. This is like a perfect indie book in the sense that it's off the rails in the sense that like it's a completely different like concept. It's heavy on the metaphors, if you will. But just the idea of like you have a group of quote unquote heroes that have to go into books and fix all the fucking plot holes that we always bitch about, so that book can get published. Right. And if they fail to do their job and shitty books get published, then their world collapses. Right. Sort of like, us like, oh, what do you mean there's a fucking perfect size hole in the Death Star that they could fucking blow and it blows up the whole fucking thing. Right. Like just that whole idea of like you have this band of misfits that go in and their sole purpose is, to fix, shitty writers, plot holes is absolutely tremendous. And the fact that the band of misfits are, sort of, I don't want to say rip-offs of literary characters, but they're, sort of based on characters that we know, was even better. Like, for those watching behind me, you've got Kevin and Roar, which
such a little rat bastard, huh?
Oh, Kevin. He's a smug little prick, but he's our smug little prick. You love him. And
Roar's awesome too. They're all so, dude.
They are right. So Kevin is like, think of like, I think he's described in the book as a racist Calvin and Hobbes. But he's not racist in the book. But like, what's funny is I think it's Bill Watterson, right, that wrote Calvin and Hobbes, and I love Calvin and Hobbes, and I've got the entire collection. And the way he wrote the character and the philosophical nature of it. And like, when you think of Bill Waters, you think of just like Sunday paper, it's wholesome. And then when Sean Murphy is describing, the author that writes Kevin, it was Kevin and whatever the tiger's name was, you find out that he's like this zealot and this like racist, and which is like the antithesis of what it was. And just for some reason, I thought that was perfect. It was hilarious in a sense. And then, he in the book, he's always with this shape-shifting tiger named Roar. So you think, oh, they're both from Calvin and Hobbes, but no, ironically, Roar is just sort of it's a fantasy character who's a shape-shifting tiger that just, Kevin happens to be best friends with. So it's still keeping that Calvin and Hobbes sort of, dynamic. And then, what I love the most though was the character of Ed, short for editor. Right. And again, heavy on the metaphors, but I love this character because before you read the story, he tells a story about his grandmother and how
Mm-hmm.
important she was to him, as a kid, and and how important she was in his art career. And he said she always loved when I would draw her as a badass, which makes me like love his grandmother. She unfortunately, passed, and he talked about that, but he made that character sort of in her likeness, like a badass version of his grandmother, and that was really good too. So it was just like, you know, I just love the entire premise. And, again, it was heavy with the metaphors, but it wasn't like hit you over the head with it. It was very philosophical. There was a lot of, you know, there's a theme with all the books that I sort of picked, but like it was absolutely tremendous. And I
Hmm.
don't know if you remember
So wait,
this.
when you texted me that you were laughing out loud, were you reading this?
No, different book.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Different book, but I don't know if you caught this, Nick. So you have to remember way back when we talked to Katana Collins, that's Sean
Yep.
Murphy's wife,
Yep.
and we end every interview by asking asking the writer what they've been reading, and she talked about this book, this indie book called Cafe Racer,
Hmm.
and I can't remember the premise of it, but it was something about like this like motorcycle gang would just sort of go for like hop from cafe to cafe, and I don't know like what if they were on adventures or whatnot, and then so if you're reading this book and on the editor's table, on Ed's table, is always a stack of books. Those are books that they have to fix.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is titled Cafe Racer.
It was. I did not
Yeah,
catch that. Look
yeah,
at
because
you.
I zoomed in on all those because I was just interested because that Murphy was gonna put books in there that were important to him, or he
Mm.
was gonna he was gonna write some funny shit in there.
I can't remember if
Uh,
was this 6 issues or 5 issues? This was
five
five.
issues.
So I
Yeah.
think it was the last issue where you see him like remember where they're kind of hopping through a lot of books. You remember that part too?
Yep. Yep.
I love that. That was
Yeah.
great.
That
Yeah.
was awesome. So like this book is just it's fun, but it's got great action. I mean, the whole
Yep.
premise. I mean, Sean Murphy is as much as we love his art, he is a great writer,
Yeah.
and just the whole idea, that the concept of this book, just tickled me pink. It was
It's
fantastic.
so funny, and honestly, I think you could. There's maybe some things that would be tough to translate to a movie. That there's definitely things that are like that part I was just alluding to, really different stuff that he's written.
Yeah,
That's for Sean Murphy readers, right? That's not going to necessarily hit home.
right.
For everybody who hasn't read some of his stuff through the years, but I would love to see have someone find a way to turn this into a movie because I think it would play in a lot of ways. It works perfectly. That may be the only thing that wouldn't necessarily play, I guess.
Right,
A
but
little,
this
but
would be a
otherwise,
fun movie to watch. Like
yeah,
I'm not comparing it to The Losers, but The Losers was a comic book adaptation that was kind of goofy, kind of funny. Like you could do like that with this. You just
yeah,
got a group of misfits, and the premise is bananas, but it was also very emotional too. For
yeah.
those that read it, and how it all comes together at the end, like absolutely fantastic.
And it's yeah. I mean, I don't know who my favorite character was at the end of it all. Because it's been a little bit. I mean, I like Johnny Manga a lot too.
Yeah,
And I love his look, but then Cliff is a little pain in the ass. I'm sorry, no, Kevin is a pain in the ass.
yeah,
But Roar's really dynamic too, and then you got Leversor too.
yeah.
She's
Oh, she
something
was
else.
great. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
it was. I'm so glad you read it. I'm not stunned at all that you liked it, but I'm glad that you liked it.
I was nervous as shit because it's like, okay, because I had to type in a password to
Yep.
read it. So it's like, is he going to get an alert? Is he going to
No.
know that I'm reading this book? Like, I don't know. It's like,
No, it's
because
yours and mine. That's it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
If you want to go and read it, then that's a whole other thing. Now, if you want to read Sean Murphy's The Plot
right.
Holes, that's a whole other thing. But he's gonna figure that out at some point because he's supposed to. They've had issues like the Indiegogo campaigns getting digital stuff out has been great. And same thing with Kickstarter, but there's other things with
Yeah.
like hard copies that seem to be like
He needs to shop this to Image or somewhere and just
yeah.
get it out there because it's awesome.
And put it back out there in some other capacity because I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Let's see. So for me, my turn. All right. So you mentioned how you I think all the images that you put up on our Instagram page were all books from the last 10 that we've
Yep.
done, last 10 issues. But I don't know if I have one from within our last 10. I actually
No.
went back on a few different ones. So of course with Dorktober, right? We have a list that we're working on with Dork, which I don't know if we're doing that thing next week or it's fairly soon, right? But I had to read a couple books for that, and I wanted to. Now, of course, I'd already read. Like I mentioned, Radiant Black would have been on this short list for me, but we've talked about it a ton with Kyle Higgins, so I want to make sure we're talking about different books than the ones we've already beaten to death. Now, One that you told me about this from day one that you wanted to read it, and I was collecting this weekly still and not reading a single fucking one, was the autumnal.
Yes.
And I went and dude, oh my God, this was so good. So for those who don't know, let me pull this up. So it's Daniel Kraus and Chris Sheehan is the artist. Colorist is Jason Wardy, and then the letterer is Jim Campbell. Now, as I was reading this, I forget where I saw this, but like Amazon will not advertise this book because it's too scary.
Yeah, who said that? Someone said that and blew me away.
So we and I were talking about this as we're putting together our list, but you have witches vibes, Scott Snyder and Jock, but I think they did it better. Personally, I think Autumnal did it better, and that will reflect on my list that you guys will eventually see later on in the month for horror books. But I thought they did this better because when you get to the ending, there were moments where it's just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, huh? What? And the artwork is just is as much as Jock's artwork is always fucked up. This is just a little bit more jarring for me. And it's in the way that they talk, like you're dealing with the people throughout the story, and we're dealing with this first person, this character who's narrating the entire way through, the main character. It's just, I think it's Kat, right? What's her name?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm just like, holy shit, the entire time. It was so good. And where witches were kind of focused on the individual who's gonna get screwed over in the end, more so. It's a little bit, I guess, more of a mix, like a kind of like a cosmic gumbo, if you will. But with the autumnal, it's more focused on someone who's trying to protect the person that's going to get fucked over, although she doesn't necessarily know either. And then you just find out so much stuff as the story goes along. So yeah, it's a great horror book. It absolutely is. If you're looking for something to read this month, I don't know if it's the number one book I'd recommend that I'm going to talk about today, but I absolutely recommend it for horror books.
That ending was heavy, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Just like the last two issues were just like, oh man, that's like, I remember when I talked about on the show, because I was just like, oh man, it's just, it's because you got all the horror stuff and everything that leading up to it was just perfectly paced,
Mm-hmm.
and the breadcrumbs that were dropped and the mystery as it unfolded and the town and so like definitely, because I read Witches after I read this, I'm like, oh, this definitely has autumnal vibes to it. But I think what autumnal did better was it played on the natural aspect of things a lot better.
There's a slight twist in this book, I believe it's the last issue, that I think is what separated it from one another. Like it's like, oh shit, wait, really? And it's only for a couple pages, but it really fucks with you. And then obviously, things kind of progress the way they do. But yes, that's the thing that stuck with me most. The ending, of course, is just like, oh shit, for sure, and it's a great ending. But that little like, oh, at the end, if they ended it like that, I almost kind of would have liked it more, because that would have been really, really fucked up if they did that at the end.
Oh, 100%. And I got to talk to, I am going to I'm just going to flip flop where I have Witches and autumnal on my list. So I got to make sure I won't fuck shit too much up. But
the thing that's really good about you gotta fucking tell him, dude. How did you had the fucking first list done and now you haven't told him? It's maybe too late, Joe.
Maybe.
Much like the plot holes, this is a limited series, done, one and done. This is 8 issues. Now, I mean, there is room to revisit this if they wanted to down the line. I don't think they will. I don't think they should. But this is awesome. Could not. So Amazon's not going to tell you guys to pick it up, but Joe and I absolutely will. Go get the autumnal. Absolutely fucking awesome.
And this would make a great movie, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep. 1,000%.
All right, Nicholas, what do you think I have chosen for my next book?
Okay, so I remembered, I scanned real quickly what like my other guesses were, but you said you laughed, so that kind of throws me off a little bit. The one book I thought you said you were going to read absolutely was going to be Shadecraft, because it's 5 issues. From the jump, I absolutely loved that first issue, and that series kicked ass. Is that one of them? Wait, I have my screen.
Oh, God damn it, Nicholas.
What cover is that? I don't know what cover that is, Joe.
You don't know what character this is?
No, why am I having a brain fart?
It's 7 Secrets, Bray.
It's the mask! Holy shit, you read 7 Secrets! Dude, honestly, for some reason, it looks like a turtle or like a weird fucking bird to me, but I see it now. God, that's just so weird how your brain will fucking mess with you like that shit. But yeah, no, I see the mask. I know exactly who you're talking about now. Dude, okay, so are you fully caught up on it, or are you
I'm fully caught up. I'm 1 through 12, baby.
Dude, was it issue 11 or 12? Was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like, man, So before I dive into it, Seven Secrets, Boom Studios, written by, the hottest guy on the planet right now, Tom Taylor, art Daniel Dinaculo, letters Ed Dukeshire, and colorist Walter, Biamonte. And I've been dying to, because I read the first issue when it came out and I loved it. And you called dibs. So I
Mm-hmm.
backed off the dibs, right? I
Mm-hmm.
respected the dibs.
Yeah.
First time I
Mix it up,
respected
right?
the dibs. Yeah, I
Gotta
know,
mix it
right?
up. Yeah.
And then you just been talking about it, and then with all the stuff that Taylor's been doing lately, it's like I've got to read, I've got to read this book. So I think you even told me, like, if you have Tom Taylor as your favorite writer for the year and you haven't read Seven Secrets, you're
Yeah. You're phony.
yeah, exactly.
Big fat phony. Is that Family Guy? I think it's
It
Family
is
Guy.
it is Family Guy.
Yeah.
And so man, this is Tom Taylor at his best. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I love Nightwing. Nightwing has been like what he's done with that character has been absolutely tremendous. What he's doing, with the Superman Son of Kal-El, has been, tremendous. His character work again, he's able to, he's like Zdarsky in this sense where he's taking characters that you know and love, but he's like he gives them such emotional depth and emotional range. And
Mm-hmm.
we it just nothing is what it seems with this book, which
Mm.
is what I love, right? You had this build through 10 issues and you think you know exactly where it's going, and then the okey doke that he pulls, how he does it, how it all comes full circle. You're just like you just said, oh, what?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my effing god! That was tremendous. And so, again, another little spoiler for our fireside chat with Rodney Barnes. One of the things that he talked about was, when it comes to good story writing, when you're writing characters, is you want to find a way to have the antagonist be like relatable or sympathetic,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you can get the reader to kind of buy in or understand like where the protagonist is coming from, then you're onto something there. And when that happens,
Yep.
you're
Mm.
like, I'm okay. Oh, well, fuck, my mind's
Yes,
blown. Which way do
that
I go now?
was mind blowing because like I was going like that's what's so good about him too is and I feel like he's gonna have this going for him for a long time. Tom Taylor does such a good job of like making you think one thing and be like, oh no, not really, and then kind of like maybe, and then you get to going hard in another direction. He can jerk you around 15 different ways, and then it's like it's right where you were at the beginning, and it's like
Yeah,
holy fucking shit, you got to be
yeah,
kidding me, and
yeah,
it's not even, and it's even more than I expected. Like what the
yeah,
fuck? He
yeah,
is excellent at like pulling the rug out from under you. I think he's the
yeah.
best at doing that shit. So
Yeah,
good.
and he does it masterfully too, because it's not like obvious or it's not like over the top. It's just everything, like all the dots were connected for this to happen. And so like while like I still am very sympathetic and I still understand, and I'm still like I am attached to these characters here. I now have to say, I have to give pause and go,
Mm.
well, fuck,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm at that point now too. So you don't like we really get to that point towards the end of the second arc.
yeah,
That's where that kind of comes into play more. What Joe's talking about, but early on, Tom Taylor builds this world and this underground thing. It is really cool. Like so he goes and builds this world, and then he gets you to care about a few characters and kind of get you an understanding of what's going on. Then in the second arc, well, by the end of the first arc, things get ratcheted up to 10.
yeah,
And then by the end of the second arc, it's like, wait a second, what the fuck?
yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah,
Holy shit! Like, and now you just don't know where to go. You don't know
yeah,
you're spot on, Joe.
yeah.
You don't know where to lean at this point in the story.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. Tom Taylor is just he's phenomenal. Now I remember, I believe I remember correctly. There was an issue or something that happened in an issue not too long ago that you didn't love when it
I
happened.
didn't. Yeah, it's something that happens with Casper, but I think we sorted it out on the show. Like as I was talking about it out loud, I
Oh yeah,
realized, oh wait, that's fucking why he could do it. Like I have an idea, a general
yep,
idea of how it was
okay,
able to happen, but I just forgot because that where it would have happened was like one issue, and it seemed like such a weird blip on the radar that I
yeah,
didn't get it. But now it makes sense. Like
yeah,
it
yeah,
just
yeah,
took me a
okay,
bit.
yeah,
But I still think I gave that issue an 8.5 out of 10 or something like that. So on Geeks Worldwide, I can't remember, but it wasn't like a
yeah,
bad grade. It's just
yeah,
that was the first time I was like, wait, what? But
yeah,
other than that, it was awesome.
yeah. I mean, Seven Secrets is everything you want, in a comic. We have a listener, Tom Bellos, who who'll message me, from time to time. Have you read this book? Have you read this book? What do you think about this book? And he messaged me not too long ago. He read the first trade. It's on Hoopla. He goes, "This book is awesome," and I said, "Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
So that, I mean, it
Mhm.
really is. It's like this is what you want in a comic book because the art's great, the storytelling's great, the premise, the world, the action, like it's awesome. Like if you're a
Yeah.
comic book fan, this is the kind of shit you love to read.
And this is like the I don't want to say the premise of the story, but I feel like this is kind of more in my wheelhouse of what the shit that I kind of lean towards. I mean, Sean Murphy is obviously anything Sean Murphy I want to read. But like that's where we kind of complement each other well. You have brought in the horror stuff more and more to the point where now I'm actively seeking out horror shit more. And that's in my second book is also a horror book. And again, you know which one it is, unfortunately, because of the list and everything that I've read this book, but I need to talk about it because I have not touched on this on the show at once. Hotel from AWA Studios. Holy fucking shit. The only reason I'm not going to reveal my grade for the dork list that we're going to do, but the thing about this one is we're going to get another arc. And that's not a knock on it, but we just don't know what's going to happen next. But even if you never got a single fucking thing of Hotel ever again, the first 4 issues are absolutely bonkers. And it's just like and not only is it bonkers, Joe, it's like the way that everything is woven together, because it's like these are all it's so awesome. Where like not so much with the 4th story, but with the first 3 issues, you could read all of those individually. And like it's just a scary story in and of itself. Like you don't need anything else.
Yeah, it feels like Ice Cream Man in that sense, like an anthology. Like you have like a central character, central narrator.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I thought this was going at first when I read it. I was like, oh, okay, like we're just gonna get each book is gonna be a different, like the Crypt Keeper, right? From Jesus Christ, Tales from the Crypt, right? Like, okay, you're gonna enter the hotel. The guy behind the desk is gonna set up the premise of the issue, and then it's just gonna be a series of individual horror stories. But then, then what happens in book 4 and how it all comes together? You just like, what the fuck?
Yep, exactly. And that is the only difference, where in the 4th issue, there's a story that you can kind of appreciate on its own, but then once you get to the end, you'll have to have read at least the first one. Yeah. But it's just but honestly, read them all. They're really fast. Don't fucking read this one at night. I'll tell you what, like Autumnal is a great horror story, and it's fucked up, and like there's a lot of shit, and it gets really fucking nasty. But I felt no, I didn't read that one at night either. But I feel like Hotel is like a little bit tougher to do that in that sense. Like it gets really like the shit's twisted, and I'm trying to pull up the artist and the writer on this, but I'm just having trouble here. Give me one moment.
Right.
Give me one moment, Joe.
Yeah,
I'll find it.
So what I'll touch upon here is that like the thing with Autumnal is like it's a very linear story, right? In the sense like when you're reading it, it's got that, I don't want to say cinematic feel to it, but you feel as though very much you're in like a Stephen King kind of novel, a Stephen King world here. You can sort of like, it's easy to picture it. Whereas with like Hotel, like it is deranged. Like there is like some real fucked up shit in it. And like that, like, I mean, that is terrifying, especially in that first issue with that fucking little demon baby.
Yeah, dude. When he start, oh my god! Again, I don't want to give anything away and all this. By the way, the writer on this is John Lees, and the artist is Dalibor Talajic.
Oh, and Dalibor Talajic. He's fantastic.
The next arc, I believe, starts this month. Right? Yep. Is it this month? Yeah. So absolutely, got to pick that up. Don't hesitate at all. Hotel is outstanding. And, and Joe talks about how it feels like it's going to be an anthology series where you're just going to get it's, I'd say it's similar to an individual season of American Horror Story. And there's a central thing in all of those. And I've only seen so much of it, but it kind of goes along those lines where you have one thing that kind of binds it all together. Especially like the latest stuff that we've seen with American Horror Story. So I highly recommend Hotel. Obviously, an AWA book, no surprise that it's awesome, but man, this one's fucked up.
Yeah, so, it's something else. It is something else.
All right.
So, what do you think I've got for my last
book? I want to be completely transparent and tell everybody that my other guess was on top of Shadecraft, which I obviously got wrong, was God Country. So I want to be fair and say that's my other guess. Oh, you see? Okay, this is one that popped up in my head afterwards. I think I was reading, or like I was like, oh wait a minute, I forgot about fucking Reborn. Joe might go and read Reborn, and you did. How
I did.
awesome!
Yeah.
Woo!
This was so I saved this book for last on purpose because I wanted to make sure that if I got emotional talking about it, I wouldn't be a blubbering fucking mess throughout the entire show.
Oh wow!
So Reborn, written by Mark Millar, art Greg Capullo, letters Nate Picos, and the colorist was FCO's Placentia. And so I started reading this week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, not too long, and it was just right around the time where my grandmother's been going through some health things, some really scary health things, and so the main character Bonnie Black, uh, you know, was going through the same things. And so like this got real personal for me right out of the chute.
Wow!
Right, real personal for me right out of the chute. And so it was a little heavier for me. I mean, it's I don't want to call it a heavy book, but like the themes that it deals with, death, where do we go? What happens to us after we die? Faith, right? That's what I said earlier. Like all my books seem to have a central theme. I didn't want to say the word faith because I didn't want that to tip you off, but all three of those books sort of deal with, faith and having faith and, sort of, what happens, to us. And so like I had this conversation with my grandmother, about, what happens, when we pass, and I simply told her, I said, well, I hope Papa's there waiting for you, the big bucket of fried chicken, and you guys can, have yourselves a nice time. But like, it hit me as I was reading this because like these two events were really occurring simultaneously. And so like I said, it hit me hard. And what I loved about it too, and funny enough, Nick, this is the book that made me laugh out loud.
Really?
This was the laugh out. I'm reading this in the waiting room with Swaggins as she's doing dance class, and I gave one of these kind of things, like with a full
Wow!
fucking,
Really?
yeah. So real quick, what this book, it focuses on, what it's dealing with is faith, but also where do we go when we die? Like what happens to, when we die? And so what this story is centered around is, if you die, if in life you were a good person, you're going to end up, with the good people in the world of I can't pronounce it, Asteria, whatever you pronounce it. And when you go there, you could end up there. You could show up there first as a child or someone who is older, or you're anywhere in between. And it's sort of like this fantasy realm. And, and that goes for pets too, right? And if you're bad, if you're evil, then you're going to end up on the dark side. And, the story is about sort of good versus evil and the reckoning that happens. And the moment that made me laugh out loud was, so when Bonnie arrives there, she's freaked out. She doesn't know what's going on. She sees her father, a much younger version of her father, and he sort of explains everything. And then she wants to find her husband, who she loved dearly and who she misses dearly. So the story, revolves around she's apparently the savior, and she's going to save them, but she also is on a quest to find her husband, right? And in this process, right, we get introduced to, the protagonists and those that are trying to take over. And one of them was her cat.
Yep.
She hates her cat. I mean, he hates her because she cut his balls off.
Yep.
When he was alive. And when you see this cat and he's in full armor and he's like, oh, that's the bitch that tore off my testicles. I lost it. I laughed my ass. I don't know why that was so funny.
So
but
good. Yeah.
Because like you're thinking about it like from the cast perspective, because
spay
and neuter your pets, right?
Yeah, never thought of that. Shit.
The fact that cats are assholes, so it's 100% fitting that he's on that side, and that that he's seeking vengeance because she had him fucking neutered. I thought was fantastic. But this whole idea of like she's there. I don't want to say too much about it because this really is a good book and I don't want to spoil anything, but like it's a little heavy, but like this is something like I saved it for last because like I was afraid I might I literally might lose it because
I can't.
I've lost it several times over the past week and a half.
Of course.
And
of course, I can't believe that the timing on that though is remarkable. It really is.
I mean, Nick, it was like
Yeah.
It was literally within 24 hours of one event happening and me reading the book,
Yeah.
so it
So
was
that's
tough.
crazy.
But I flew through the book. I read the book all in one sitting.
Of course you did.
Yeah,
That thing fucking rips, and that's so
yeah,
Mark Millar and of course Greg Capullo, who we can't
yeah.
speak highly enough about. I mean, that shit. That's man. If I like, okay, so actually, which was that your favorite of the three on this list?
No, my favorite of three was Seven Secrets.
Oh,
But I
okay.
loved all these books. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
they're all
it's like
so good.
1A, 1B, 1C. These books were great.
They're all and Seven Secrets is the only one of those that's not going anywhere. But this is the one that we could see pop up on Netflix at some point down the line.
And
Hopefully,
I guess there's supposed to be more because at the end it says end of book one.
yeah. But this came out like in 2017, so I don't know
Yeah,
what the deal is there.
yeah,
So that's a little annoying. But if they do more stuff, if they decide to bring this over to Netflix or whatever, because Millar has like some deal there, just please don't do what you did with Jupiter's Legacy, for the love of God.
yeah.
Because that book
And you
book
can
deserved better.
expand this, and you can expand this. I mean, this whole world you could
Oh
do.
yeah.
It's limitless what you could do with this if you made
Yes.
it a show. Like,
Legitimately limitless. It would be awesome. I want more comics for this first. Please give me
yeah,
that, and then
yeah.
we can worry about the show. So, and then in the end though, Seven Secrets was your favorite one. That's interesting. Now, I don't know which one's my favorite. Between like I like Hotel and I like Autumnal a lot, but I feel like I gotta lean towards this last book. Joe, do you have a guess what this book is?
You've got Hoopla, so it better be fucking Daredevil.
Is that your guess?
Yes.
It's Daredevil.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, I finally started reading Daredevil. Now I've had the trades for a while. I don't have the second trade, but because we have the shared Marvel account and everything, I can get it there. I didn't realize it was on Hoopla, but of course that makes sense. But I bought these trades a while ago. I just always there was a point, I think, before TLDR 40 where I was like, I'm going to do this on 50, and we got to make 50 special, so that way it's like, because I wanted, that's when I'm going to do it for Joe. So somewhere in like the 30s, I was like, this is when I will do Daredevil. I'm not touching it till then because I want to have it fresh in my mind. And it's awesome. It's awesome. You never undersold. This is the first book you did on the show, right?
It is. Yep.
Yes. So it took me long enough, right? What a friend I am. But like, this is awesome. If you like, I think we've seen our friend of the show, Corey Pruitt, up to task on Twitter. He has said like Daredevil is one of, if not the most consistently well-written character, and I think that's a fair take. And when we were on with Dork a while back, they talked about Frank Miller, and of course, his run with Daredevil is like that's like the definitive, version of Daredevil. However, Chip's run is awesome. It is like, and you're seeing different characters getting mixed in and all this, but the inner conflict that this guy deals with and how Chip is like channeled this character is outstanding. And of course, the artwork is awesome too. And
Mark Cecchio.
Yes, Mark Cecchio. Something like that. We're sorry, Mark. But either way, he's his stuff is great for this character too. But I just love how Chip explores this character, and how and of course, as someone who is raised Catholic and everything, you can understand that Catholic guilt and everything that he's trying to do. And so,
but even with Kingpin, right? He found a way to sort of humanize Kingpin. Like he brought Kingpin, he brings Kingpin down, to his foundation. Only that, he's got to build himself back up again. But there's even that self-doubt within Wilson Fisk, right? And the Kingpin. And do you kind of get now after reading Nightwing and now reading this why I said they're very similar?
Yes.
Like, what I mean? Like,
yes. Yeah, right from the beginning you can tell how they're similar. Yeah, absolutely. So it's I mean, it was a no-brainer already. This is one of the most popular Marvel books right now. I mean, even before, Joe said it early on, and it's been that case since from day one. So I'm just only upset that I took so long to read this shit, but I'll tell you what, it's so good, man.
And what about, I think it was issue 4 or 5, you get that first cameo. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
right?
yeah. And it's like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So how far are you into it right now?
I'm in the 6th issue right now.
Okay.
On this. Yes.
You got
Sorry, the first full arc. Yes.
Yep.
Long way. But I did that pretty much in one sitting.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this thing goes balls out really until you start to get to the King in Black stuff.
It's fine, and after the King in Black, it's fine too, right?
Yeah. But you can kind of see now, like, because I think Chip, he's this current, iteration of Daredevil is coming to an end. Then there's going to be a big event, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But I mean, like overall, I mean, man, like that, I just remember reading those first 6 issues, first 10, first 15, first 20, going, just can't be beat right now. It just can't be beat.
It's been awesome, man. I'm excited. Like just that first the first arc was awesome. The start of the
Yeah.
second one's good too. And I just can't wait to read more. I'm gonna crush this thing. But yeah, so that's the first omnibus. So we're not gonna be doing anything like this again for a while. We're reflecting on a bunch of different books. So a lot of fun. Next week, reminder, we are only doing the episode with Scott Snyder, where he's hopping on with us. Maybe we'll have somebody else on with us. We'll see, but definitely him. The plan is 1:30 Eastern time, October 12th. So make sure you're here. The audio will be dropping on Wednesday. That'll be all we have for you guys. Next week, we are very excited to talk to Scott. It's been a while, and obviously he's been a very busy man.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about We Have Demons, Clear, and oh my God, what is the Ghoul? The Night of the Ghoul?
Night of the Ghoul, yep.
Night of the Ghoul with the Francavilla book. And then, of course, in the meantime, you can also listen to Change My Mind. We did our Venom Carnage review for this week. And Joe, you and Billy on I've Heard It Both Ways are doing
Psych Season 3, Episode 7, Talk Derby to Me.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Well, until next week, Joe, stay sexy.
You know it.